All right, welcome to today's show. So, facing the music with the bloodbath that's going on today. It's not good news. Nobody likes to see the markets go down. Bitcoin's down, strategy's far down, and things are not looking good in August at all. So, I'm going to just talk about what's happening. This is not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice. Do your own research. So, we know strategy is down at about $340. Not good. I'm going to share with you historically how strategy has run in 2024 and 2025. So you can see that there have been 30, 40, 50% drawdowns before. This is not to sugarcoat anything. This is just to simply give hope for the future. I believe we're still coming into a bull run in September, October, November. I believe that the first half of September will still be a little bit rough. The rate cuts and news on that is going to come mid-September. And as you all know, there was data that recently came out on the CPI and the PPI. CPI is a consumer price index, shows you how much the cost of that basket in goods and services gone up or down. And then the PPI is a producer's price index, how much costs have gone up for people who are producing the goods, selling the goods. All right. So the news kind of came out a little bit mixed on CPI and PPI. And the PPI came out where it was up, and then people kind of flipped out a little bit in the markets, and then we started to see a sell-off. So we saw that big surge with Bitcoin went to 115 from 118,000 to 124,000. And then the news came out on the PPI the next day, and then we saw it drop all the way down to where it's at right now over the last couple of days. So that's what's happening with that. I think that people were bullish with the idea that there was going to be a 100% chance of rate cuts coming in September. And then after that news, the recent polls say there's about an 83% chance of rate cuts in September. So I would say brace yourselves for the next month or so on this as we get through the bloodbath. I would also say brace yourself for the idea that Bitcoin could go lower. It could go down to 111. 112, it's got good support there. And if that goes lower, our strategy, of course, is going to go much lower as well. So that's just the reality of the situation. Now, things on the horizon. Let me just give you a little retrace of strategy's performance. When you look back in 2024, I bought into strategy when it was $79 in 2024. I also bought it at 100. I also bought it at 150. And when you look at the price point I remember a big drop with strategy in 2024. It was March 27th. Strategy was at $191. And then on April 30th, which was about a month later, it dropped down to $106. So it was approximately a 50% drop. I remember living through it. The rocket ride up was amazing from $79 to $191 in a very short period of time, and then a 50% drawdown almost. And it was like, oh my God, this sucks. I did not sell at that time because I believe in strategy. And so I held and continued to hold through it. So that's that. I will address MSTU in a second. Okay. So we've got that. Then you've got November of 2024. We saw a huge drawdown. Strategy went as high as 473 on regular trading hours, over 500 on after hours. And then we saw from November to 2024 to the big drop that took place in April 8th, where it went down to $237 on strategy. All right. So May 9th, we saw a rebound up to $414. So you see the swing of like April 8th down to 237, and then a month later up to 414. So from a low up to higher. And then in July, we went to 455 on strategy. And now we're all the way back down to 340. So this stock is extremely volatile. This is how it's moving. And the Q2 earnings came out, and people were super excited about the Q2 earnings. It was like, wow, this is amazing. They had a $10 billion profit, unrealized gains, I should say, over $10 billion. And it was a hell of an earnings report. And then they came out with something about the MNAV, which is basically, the net asset value of their Bitcoin. So you take their Bitcoin value, you minus out their expenses, their debts, their interest payments, things like that. And then you get the net asset value of the Bitcoin. And so Strategy is always traded at a premium to their Bitcoin. And in 2024, it went over 2.5, went over 3, and went as high as 4. And now it's dropped down to like 1.5, actually lower than 1.5 recently. So when the Q2 earnings came out, I think Strategy was super bullish that their stock was going to shoot up. I think a lot of us were. And then they put in their report that their plan in the future for tapping the ATM. So when they issue more common shares, one of the things that they did heavily in 2024 is they would issue common shares. Their shares were always, the stock would go way up to its net value of its Bitcoin holdings, which is the premium. So it was trading above the holding of its Bitcoin holdings, above the value of its Bitcoin holdings. And so they would just issue more stock because they were way up. They would take that money, they would buy Bitcoin. And that was a very, very successful action for them to acquire Bitcoin in 2024. The market didn't like it that much. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, every time they issue shares, they're diluting shares and they're diluting shareholder value. But that wasn't actually true. They were temporarily diluting the shares, but the Bitcoin per share that they were accumulating was way more than what they were diluting. So it was very, very, very accretive to shareholders, but people didn't like it because it would temporarily move the price down and the market started to complain, shareholders started to complain. So when they came out with their new earnings report in recently in July, when they came out with their new earnings report, basically they said, we're not going to continue to deploy that strategy of issuing common shares to buy more Bitcoin unless our NAV premium is above 2.5. And so they thought that was a good idea because the market would react and shareholders would react unfavorably when they would issue and hit the ATM a lot. Hence why they came out with Strife and Strike and Stride. Not just, that wasn't the only reason they came out with those. They wanted to capture the bond market and the fixed income market and get money from those types of investors versus more aggressive investors who are buying MSTR directly. But they had many different ways to accumulate Bitcoin. And one of the main things that got them to be successful was tapping the ATM with the common shares and then using it to buy Bitcoin. And they're like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore unless we're above 2.5 NAV. Okay. So they decided that they weren't going to do that anymore unless they're above 2.5. And whether that had an unfavorable response or not, who knows? It certainly didn't have a favorable response. We're not sure if that caused the drop or caused Strategy to decline more. But ultimately, I don't think it was a good idea. And so recently they came out and they adjusted their rules, call it their policies moving forward. And they said, we will, they basically said, we won't wait till we're above 2.5 to issue more common shares to buy more Bitcoin, which I think is smart because that was one of the successful actions that got them to continue to acquire more Bitcoin and continue to drive the share price up. So they have kind of retracted on that and they reissued and republished their strategy moving forward. And so I think that's better. And they're going to issue more common shares to buy Bitcoin when it's advantageous to the company and advantageous to the shareholders. So I think that's good news from that perspective of them retracting the statement on that so that we can move forward and have the same strategy to acquire Bitcoin that we had in 2024 and early 2025 that got Strategy into such an affluence and such a power condition and put them at the top. Now, with all that said, despite the fact that the market is total crap right now and it's not even fun, and we're not enjoying this at all right now, watching Strategy drop. If you're just joining us, I did give the history of Strategy dropping. So like if you have not lived through this before, March 27th, we went from $191 down to $106. All right. It was a rocket ride up and it was enjoyable. I was watching this at the time because I was already invested at $79. Watched it shoot up to 191, drop down to 106. Still held onto it, did not sell. Okay. Did not sell. Then November 2024, we saw the $473 price point, and then we dropped in April 8th down to 237. So it's a huge drop. I mean, that's like 50, 60, 70% drop. Then we went back up a month later to 414, and then in July we went to 455, and now we've dropped back down. So I don't think that strategy is dead, guys. Okay, I just don't feel that that's the case. Some people feel that it's cooked. I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that we are waiting our time out for the next 30 days. This is not financial advice to anybody. I believe that the Fed will cut interest rates, and I'm hopeful that they will in mid-September, and that will put more money into the market, and we will see, my prediction is a boom in Bitcoin and a boom in strategy. So I'm still holding on to my strategy. I'm not selling my strategy, and that is my basic plan on what I'm doing. Some potential good news that might come, and I will answer your question, D-Money, on whether I'm buying more or not. But here's some good news to come, which is that we will find out around September 5th if strategy gets added to the S&P 500. If they get added to the S&P 500, because they already have qualified for this, they just need to be voted on. As of the timing of this video, they're somewhere around the top 100 companies right now. And so they should potentially get voted in because they meet all the qualifications. If they do, we're talking about $30 billion of passive inflows into strategy over the coming months. And that's a lot of money. Okay. So that in itself would be good news to push the stock back up, number one. Number two, additional good news would be the Fed cutting interest rates mid-September. So we'll have to wait to mid-September. So in the meantime, it could be a rough 30 days, and just brace yourselves. All right. I don't think Bitcoin has hit its lowest yet. It does have good support at like 111, but I don't think it's hit its lowest yet. And I don't think Ethereum has hit its lowest yet. So that's the status of where we're at right now. And that is the basic news. Now, with that said, we'll wait and see if strategy gets added to the S&P 500. If they do, that's extremely good bullish news for strategy. And we'll wait to see when Saylor will tap the ATM again and issue common shares to buy additional Bitcoin. And of course, he continues to issue his other preferred stocks. He's buying little bits of Bitcoin week to week. When we see 50 million comparatively to $1 billion or 2 billion, that's clearly little to us from comparable magnitude of what we're used to. Okay. So that's the basic gist on it. Somebody was asking me about MSTU, what I'm doing with MSTU. Here's the basic thing. MSTU is a 2x leverage of strategy. It's even more risky than strategy. All right. So I bought into that. The problem with holding it long term over time is that you have the decay of those 2x leverage type vehicles. So MSTU has 2x leverage on strategy, but it also has decay. So it's designed and set up to do a 2x during the day of what strategy does. So if strategy goes up 5%, it goes up 10%. That's what it's designed to do. If strategy goes down 5%, it goes down 10%. So I have been holding on to it, but I trade it, just so you know. So I trade in and out of MSTU. So with my strategy of doing it, I trade in and out. So I make money when it goes down. Now, with that said, I still do have some of my MSTU, but I think the faster horse for me, and this is not financial advice, over the next 90 to 120 days is BMNR. And BMNR is similar to what strategy is doing with Bitcoin, where strategy is buying Bitcoin and has 629,000 worth of Bitcoin. BMNR is a company that's headed up by Tom Lee, who's the chairman of it, and they are acquiring Ethereum. And just like strategy is looking to acquire, 5% of the supply of Bitcoin. BMNR's goal is to acquire 5% of the supply of Ethereum. And so if you look at BMNR, it's recently dropped like the rest of the market. But I like to play with these high volatility deals, okay? And so I believe, my personal opinion, not giving financial advice at all, I just put a bunch of money into BMNR. Now, with that said, my cost basis, I bought BMNR as it was zooming, is at like around 60 bucks. It's now down at $49. And at the same time, I still trade it. Okay. So like these short-term instruments like MSTU, I was holding it for a while, been trading it recently to make up for the drops in the decay. I will swap in and out of MSTU and BMNR and trade them constantly. All right. I have the majority of the money that's in BMNR right now. Some of it's still in MSTU, but I am trading them. So in the last 2 days on trading, or I should say Monday, yesterday, and through this morning, I've made $17,000 trading in and out of them, even in the down markets. So I use these vehicles and I trade. Okay. I'm also holding these vehicles, but I believe that BMNR is going to be the faster horse. So my inclination is to hold that more than hold that MSTU, because MSTU has the decay if you hold it for 3, 4, 5 more months. All right. So that's just my personal viewpoint of where I'm at with those two things and what I'm doing with them right now, just so you know. Okay. Because I have talked about MSTU previously on the show. Again, super, super risky. I'm not saying anybody go out and do anything with it at this point. It is super low right now at this point. And I still do hold some. And again, I'm trading. All right. So I'm holding and I'm trading. But the majority of that money that I had in MSTU, I'm switching in and out, and most of it is flowing into BMNR, just so you're aware. All right. So BMNR is something to check out. BMNR is absolutely 100% a very, very interesting play to study and get educated on. It is super volatile. And just like ETH ran up to $4,700, recently BMNR ran up to like $72. Okay. So I just think in the next 4 or 5 months, BMNR is going to go up much higher than it is right now. That's my personal opinion on it. It's fascinating to watch. The reason why I think Ethereum is an interesting play to watch right now is because we know that the US government just passed the laws on the Genius Act. And so the Genius Act basically says that the stable coins need to be backed by US dollars. So stable coins are basically like digital dollars. Okay. And digital dollars are sitting right now on the blockchain, these stable coins. And the majority of stable coins are on the Ethereum blockchain. So we've heard comparative data that Solana does more transactions, that Solana is faster. True, Solana is faster, cheaper as well. But Ethereum has the majority of the stablecoin market on it. All right. When you have USDT and USDC. All right. And so these are stable coins. And so the fact that they have to be backed by the US dollar per the regulations passed by the United States government, that means now that the US government is kind of in bed with the stablecoin marketplace. Like they're going to be pushing that agenda forward. All right. Because the more stable coins that are issued, the better it is for the dollar, because every stable coin that's issued, every dollar in stable coins has to be backed by a dollar in US dollars, right? So every stable coin worth $1 backed by a US dollar. That's just the law. And so the stablecoin market could explode and go much, 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 much higher. So with that being said, when it does, that is a very, very good thing for Ethereum. That's number one. And so, you know, I'm not switching out of MSTR, so you guys know I'm holding on to MSTR, right? So I'm holding on to MSTR. I'm holding on to MSTR through the bull run. And at the same time, I like to make money and I like to find new opportunities. So when I find a new opportunity that I think is going to be faster than some of the other things out there, or it could be the next strategy, I should say, then I allocate some positions to that. But I have not sold out MSTR to do that. Okay. I've sold out some of the 2x version of MSTR called MSTU, which is a leverage play, because I do not want to hold that thing for an entire year because of the decay with it. So I trade in and out of it. All right. With that said, the Ethereum blockchain is going to be a force, I believe, in terms of the government trusting it and also large corporations on Wall Street trusting it. And here's one of the reasons why. Ethereum has been around for 10 years, right? And so when you look at that period of Ethereum, we see that, or actually longer than that. So we see that Ethereum, the blockchain, has not gone down. All right. So it hasn't gone down. So if the larger Wall Street companies are going to eventually start moving onto the blockchain, which I'll tell you why they're going to do this in a second, then they're going to go to the trusted blockchain that hasn't been down, that's been around the longest, because they're going to be conservative and they're going to go to the one that's the most trusted. Right now, that is Ethereum. And so Wall Street is going to move there because one of the initiatives is we're seeing the tokenization of stocks, bonds, real estate. And what that basically means is you take a stock and you tokenize it, you put it onto the blockchain. And so when you look at the current stock market, you can only trade the current stock market on most platforms. Like early morning pre-trading starts at about 7 o'clock Eastern, and it closes down after hours and it goes to about 8 o'clock Eastern, right? So when you look at the markets, they're only open for a period of time about 12 hours. Well, the blockchain, if you're on the blockchain, you could trade 24/7, 365. So people are wondering, like, why did Coinbase build on Ethereum? Yeah, you can check it out and do the research. So you have something called Base that's built on top of Ethereum, and it's a layer 2. And basically what that means is layer 1 is Ethereum. And if you're just doing business and trading in and out and doing transactions on Ethereum on layer 1, the fees are high. So you have organizations like Coinbase that are going onto Ethereum. They're building a financial app on top of it, because that's the purpose of Ethereum. One of them, people build financial apps on top of this platform and they do business, right? So you build an app on top of it. Other people build apps on top of it, and you can do business with each other. It's called smart contracts, where you can exchange money with one another in any form or fashion that you want. I mean, you could have a landlord and you as the renter and have a smart contract on Ethereum where it's just automatic. The contract's on there, it's immutable, it doesn't get changed, the rules are already built in, and it's programmable money. On the first of the month, it freaking drafts your rent and it's done. And if you don't pay your rent, they could literally lock your damn door, okay, with the technology. So these programmable rules and programmable money and these contracts that are built in makes Ethereum very, very attractive. The reason why Wall Street is going there is because they want to build on top of Ethereum. They will have cheaper fees than Ethereum when they build a layer 2. So you have Ethereum and then they build on top. There's cheaper fees to transact. But the reason why Coinbase is going there, you might be like, why is Coinbase going there? They can trade 24/7, 365. It's a crypto exchange. Coinbase is going there because of the security. Like Ethereum is secure. Simple. Okay. So on Coinbase, there is a central point of failure. I mean, even last week, you looked at Coinbase, they went down, right? So when you look at these central points of failure, if you go onto the blockchain, which doesn't have a central point of failure, it's way more secure. So one, companies want to move there for the security, because once the transaction is settled, it settles on Ethereum. And as it settles on Ethereum, it can't be changed. You can't doctor the books after it's settled. Make sense? So that is huge, like huge, 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 huge news for it. That's number one, right? Number two, you see Robinhood moving over there. And so Robinhood, you can trade on Robinhood, but you can't trade 24/7, 365. And so when you look at it, they're going to be moving stocks over there, and they're going to be tokenizing these stocks, where it's the stock, like you could have a stock of like whatever, like Berkshire Hathaway, right? And then they tokenize it. So they create a token that represents the stock. It goes onto Ethereum, but with Robinhood, they're creating their own financial app on top of Ethereum. So they're building on Ethereum. And so they can take their stocks and they just put them in the form of a token, and people can trade them 24/7, 365. So one of the reasons why you're seeing such a huge amount of shift and movement to the Ethereum blockchain is because the government's in bed with the stablecoin market. 70% of all stablecoins are held on Ethereum. Wall Street wants to tokenize their stocks, their bonds, their real estate, so they can trade them 24/7, 365. It is just a logical thing that's going to happen. There's no way it doesn't happen where these companies like Robinhood, which already moved onto Ethereum, Coinbase, which already moved onto Ethereum, you're going to see the Fidelities of the world, the Schwabs of the world, they're going to go onto the blockchain. Now, some might choose Solana, some might choose Ethereum, but Wall Street's going to be conservative and choose the blockchain that hasn't gone down and it's been around the longest. That's Ethereum. That's my prediction. All right. Somebody's asking about the fees on Ethereum, what about the high fees? When you build a layer 2 on top of Ethereum, you have fees that are cheaper. So while Ethereum's layer 1 fees are expensive, when you build layer 2, you can get cheaper fees and cheaper transaction fees, and the speed is faster. So that's what these companies are doing. They're building their own layer 2s. So that's not going to stop. And so when you look at it and you start to see the bullishness of why many people become bullish on Ethereum, they have become bullish on Ethereum because of those reasons. And not to mention, you have Tom Lee, who is the spokesperson for Wall Street. So we do a little comparative analysis here. Again, I'm still an MSTR bull, okay? Still an MSTR bull, all right? You continue to hear me reporting on this channel on MSTR, so I'm not going to stop that. I'm just sharing with you what I think is the next MSTR, and if you're joining late, I just went fully into MSTR and the price drops that we've seen over the last year and a half, and that we've been here before, okay? And so I just covered MSTR. Now I'm covering BMNR as well to make some comparative data of kind of where this play comes in and why we should be aware of what's happening with Ethereum. Because if you're a Bitcoin holder like I am, and you're an MSTR holder like I am, and you're not paying attention to what's going on with Ethereum, it's just smart to know what's happening with these other chains. And Ethereum has a completely different use case than Bitcoin, completely different. They're total opposites. Okay. So, so that's what's happening with Ethereum. All right. Which is exciting. And so I think Ethereum is just getting started. It has not hit its all-time highs that we saw back in 2020, 2021, I should say. And it came close to breaking that and getting back to that. And its all-time high then was around 4,800. So it needs to get back through 4,800. It went up to 4,700 and change, and then it shot back down and it's dropped over 10% in the last several days. All right. I don't think it's done. And when you look at the spokesperson, you can do a comparative analysis of Saylor, who is the spokesperson for MSTR and the head of MSTR, and the spokesperson for Bitcoin. Now you have Tom Lee, who is the spokesperson for BMNR that owns Ethereum. So when you look at this, most people are calling it the next MSTR because through comparative analysis, it is the next MSTR, but from an Ethereum perspective. Now, why does it make it interesting to watch? And so somebody's asking me, what's my prediction for Ethereum at the end of the year? I don't have a prediction myself on it of where I want to say it's going to go. I know other numbers that are being thrown around, like Tom Lee recently said that Ethereum, he thinks 7,500 is real, but he's also throwing around that Ethereum could do 10,000 or 15,000. So he's throwing that around. Will it do that? We don't know. And so do I think that 7,500 for Ethereum is real? I do think that is real because of the data that I just shared with you. All right. Do I know that it's going to happen? I don't know. We'll see. All right. But do I think it's going higher than where we're at right now at 4,300 or 4,200 that we dropped to? I do think we're going higher than that. I think it will break its original all-time high. Now, when you look at Tom Lee, he is very, 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 very trusted on Wall Street, like very trusted. And so he is the guy in 2011, 2012 that called Bitcoin at $100. And he's got the ear of Wall Street. And so he brought in some major investors into this company. And so the difference with Saylor is Saylor was kind of new to the whole Wall Street game when he started. And so Saylor accumulated Bitcoin super fast. and was incredible with what he did and did it in like record time from all of our viewpoints. Tom Lee now has the playbook thanks to Saylor. And he's now doing it with Ethereum. And because he's learned from what Saylor's done and Saylor's laid out the rules for how it goes, Saylor's paved the path. And so Tom Lee and BMNR, which is buying up Ethereum, is doing it faster than Saylor. Of course, because the first person who paves the way, has the more difficult job. So thank you to Saylor, because he has really paved the way for these other Bitcoin treasury companies, Ethereum treasury companies, Solana treasury companies. And we owe him a lot of credit for that in doing that. Now, Tom Lee is highly respected in the space, highly, highly respected. And he is going to continue to acquire Ethereum, and they're going to acquire it aggressively. And they came out with news last week that on top of the 3 billion of ETH that they already acquired, they have a plan to acquire another 20 billion. So this is so Saylor-esque of what he's doing just on the Ethereum side. And he's got major investors behind him. He's got Kathy Ark from Ark Investments. He's got Peter Thiel behind it. He's the co-founder of PayPal. They've got major players in the game, like major players, like the blue chip investors of Wall Street. He's got in the game. So with him behind it, I just don't see how this stock is not going to flourish and succeed. So I expect to see some big things with it over the next 4 to 5 months. So that's basically what's going on. Again, a little recap in case you missed the beginning. It's a bloodbath right now. I haven't looked at my phone in a few minutes, but it's like we're watching it drop, and it's a bloodbath, right? And we could be going lower on this. Bitcoin's at 113,400. We're looking at Ethereum at MSTR at 339. BMNR is down at $48. We've got Ethereum at 4,156. Could we go lower? Absolutely. Okay. So prepare yourself for the next couple weeks to 4 weeks. It could be, I'm not saying it will be, it could be rough. And also prepare yourself, which I think end of September, October, November, I think we're blowing up. And I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin, very, very bullish on strategy. And I continue to hold them, and I'm not selling them. Okay. So we also may have some good news with the rate cuts coming in September. This is just a recap of what I talked about before. September 15, 16, somewhere around there, rate cuts. 83% chance, the polls are saying right now. It was 100%, we thought. That's why you saw Bitcoin shoot up. They were pricing it in. It shot up to 124 or whatever. And then, we could be very flat and even more down in August. So check for that. And then around September 5th, I think we will get the news on whether MSTR gets added to the S&P 500. The potential for that over the coming months after that is billions and billions and billions of dollars of passive inflows, potentially 30 billion. And that's the game. All right. So, investing, not, just theoretically, not financial advice. For myself personally, is always a risk. I like to get into things early. I got into MSTR early at $79. I continue to buy more after that. I got into Bitcoin early at $3,000. I bought Bitcoin at 3,000, Bitcoin at 20, Bitcoin at 3,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 69,000. And I haven't bought Bitcoin since. Okay. So, and strategy, I bought most of it at much, much lower price points. So, and BMNR, I'm now allocating money to BMNR because I think, relatively speaking, right now, BMNR is low, and I think we will see BMNR much higher in the coming months. But we could see it from where it is right now, much lower. I mean, who knows? It could go down into the 30s, right? So that's the basic story of what's going on. It's a rough moment right now in August. But I still maintain I'm not gonna sit here and start selling out of MSTR and selling out of Bitcoin and selling out of these things when right around the corner is the explosion I think that we're going to see at the end of September, October, and November. Okay. So I hope this serves you. Again, I wanted to just face the music. Like, it's nobody likes to see the markets down. They're down, but just give you my viewpoint on it. And then the final recap is, for those of you just joining us, is strategy has done this many times before. You know, again, 191 to 106 in early 2024. Late November, 473 in 2024, down to 237 in early 2025. Back up to 414, then 455. Now back down to 340. This stock is volatile, volatile, volatile. So if you have a stomach ache right now, it's okay. It happens. We don't like seeing it. As much as I've been through this and lived through it, again, been in Bitcoin since 2018, I've lived through it. You know, my stomach's gotten more cast iron since then, but it still aches when you see a little bit of a drop, which is also why I've learned the skill set of trading, because I still make money in the drops, and that's always a good skill to learn. So I hope this serves you guys. I hope that you're not too freaked out with the drops. And my personal viewpoint for my own situation is just I'm holding, and I'm going to trade in and out of a few things that I trade, but I'm holding MSTR, I'm holding Bitcoin, and I'm going to wait for it to rebound and enjoy the rest of the year. All right. So have a great rest of the day. This is what I'm saying to myself. Just relax, stay calm. It sucks to see a 10, 15, 20, 30% drop. And I believe we will see an increase coming in the future. All right. Hope you all have an amazing rest of the day. Again, do your own research, not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice. But I think we're going to have good things on the horizon. And that's not to discount the fact that it sucks right now. But carry on, and let's be decisive about a great next 4 months, and let's keep hope and faith, and also just data-wise, historically, this is when Bitcoin and strategy run in the upcoming months. So with that said, I don't personally think for myself that there's much to be concerned about for the next 4 to 5 months. Right now, we'll deal with the bullshit, and we'll hold through it. And there you go for myself. Okay. Hope it serves you, and I'll see you on the other side. Stay well.